Hi, I'm Shannon Stubbs, the MP for Lakeland. You know, people often ask me if we can really get things done as the official opposition. You need to know that we use all tools that we can, everything that's available to us in this role to fight for our constituents and to hold the government accountable. But even though more individual Canadians actually voted Conservative in both of the last two elections, you know that the NDP has been propping up the Liberals to keep them in power with their backroom deal to support all their budgets and all their laws until 2025. This week in Parliament, Conservatives put forward a motion pushing the government to call on the Auditor General to really dig into the payments, the contracts, and the subcontracts for all aspects of the failed ArriveSCAM app as soon as possible to get answers for you. Out of control Liberal spending is driving the cost of living out of control. Canadians are now paying higher prices on everything and facing higher than ever interest rates because of the Liberals' money printing, borrowing, tax and spend agenda. The ArriveSCAM app turned out to be an ArriveSCAM on taxpayers, and it's a prime example of the kind of typical incompetence and reckless spending of this government that always leaves Canadians on the hook. ArriveSCAM wrongly forced 10,000 healthy, fully vaccinated Canadians into quarantine, threw a wrench into personal lives, humiliated and pitted people against each other. Those who didn't comply were threatened with $5,000 fines and even more sometimes, as if the growing cost of living crisis isn't enough of a burden. All travelers coming or returning to Canada were forced to submit their personal information. It discriminated against people based on whether they had access to a cell phone or computer or were physically impaired, and it created countless delays. ArriveSCAM even held up first responders going to Atlantic Canada to try to help with a hurricane, a time when every minute matters. So here's the crazy thing. Even with all those issues, guess what? The government, of course with your tax dollars, because they have no money of their own, paid more than $54 million to roll it out. And IT experts and developers, they say it could have been developed for almost $53 million less in a couple of days. What's even more mind-boggling is there are companies the Liberals say were contracted to work on it, but then there's a whole bunch of companies that say they didn't actually receive any money, like a $1.2 million contract to Think On and a $120,000 contract to Ernst & Young. And guess what? Both of those companies say they didn't get a dime. Canadians want and deserve accountability. So Conservatives are asking, where did the millions of tax dollars spent on app development go? Who got rich? That's why we brought in our motion. It's more important than ever for the government to respect your taxpayer dollars, stop wasteful spending, and be transparent about every cent they spend. Because the results of the Liberals' 7 years in power is that the more they spend, the more expensive life gets for everyone else. The highest inflation in 4 decades, more Canadians using food banks than ever before, half of Canadians who are a couple of $100s away from bankruptcy every month. So here's a sliver of good news. Our Conservative motion passed in the House of Commons. Bloc Québécois MPs and even the NDP voted in favor. So now the ball's in the Liberals' court, and Conservatives will keep at it. The Liberals must disclose who was paid, where millions of tax dollars went, and the details of the contracts. You have a right to know, and you know why? Especially because the Liberals have increased government contracting 74% during their time in office. It costs you $14.6 billion a year. And there are so many examples of hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone to big businesses, Liberal insiders, former Liberal MPs, anti-Semites, and even foreign consultants. Conservatives will fight inflation, stop taxes, cap spending, remove unnecessary red tape, and bring money and businesses back to Canada. That will help Canadians take back control of their lives and turn hurt into hope.